Chris Uhlmann is with me. Yeah, the smile was there, and understandably, I guess.
Yeah, she has every right to be pleased. And think about it, a consequential meeting, because now they don't have to worry about what happens with AUKUS. Well, they do, because, you know, this is a long-run project, but it has the imperial blessing of Donald Trump. And once you have that, then all the other moving parts will start to come together behind it. And then there's the critical minerals deal. This is really important for Australia. It's important for the United States. I mean, the hard part from here on, it's always what happens next, which is the hard part, is that, you know, that's going to require an enormous amount of time and effort and money and an enormous amount of energy to produce those critical minerals. And it's a long-run thing rather than a short-run thing. But all of this stuff is trending in the right direction. So, yeah, as they fly back from that trip, they should be greatly pleased. And I think that Kevin Rudd should be pleased too. And I think he's got that job for as long as he wants it.
Yeah, it's interesting that's analysis. So we'll go back to that now because we're interrupted with the Foreign Minister's news conference. But at the time, in the room, someone who was in there was telling me it was pretty stark. Not Clennell, but one of the protagonists said it was quite, you know, a difficult situation. They were feeling it was quite awkward. But then subsequently, as you say, it's cleared the air.
Yeah, broke the ice.
They would have been annoyed with the question, let's be honest, wouldn't they? But now...
I'm pretty sure as Andrew Clennell got to that part of his question where he mentioned Kevin Rudd, that, you know, there'd be a clenching of the cheeks at that point about which way it might go. Yeah. But you got a Donald Trump in a very good mood. I'm sure that he knew who Kevin Rudd was. He's a former Prime Minister of Australia. He put him in his place and then moved on. And having done that, of course, in his own particular style, that's good for Trump. And, you know, Trump can then be magnanimous after he's made his big play in public. So it's good for Australia. It's good for Kevin Rudd. And look, you can say what you like about Kevin Rudd, but no one does work harder. And he's an extremely clever man who has put together a very good deal for Australia, and he should be congratulated for that.
And the point that was made by, I would say, the most accomplished public servant in Australia's history, Dennis Richardson, I had him on the program yesterday, and he said, this critical minerals deal doesn't happen unless you've got an ambassador that's working effectively.
And also, he saw what the real need of the United States was. And that's one of the important things about that, is to recognise where things are trending. Now, China has rare earths and critical minerals tied up. The supply chain basically leads, all roads keep leading back to China. Now, you can put as many sanctions on China as you like. You're going to hurt yourself in the long run if you are not using the minerals and the resources that they supply. And in all of these supply chains, they have some vital part of it. And so every time the United States tries to impose some kind of sanction on China or some kind of tariff, it rebounds onto the United States. Now, this doesn't fix that in the short term, but it's a way of trying to fix that in the long term, which is important.
On the comment made about the Prime Minister being a great Prime Minister, and he says, I'll use that in my ad campaign.
That's not happening.
That won't happen.
Can you imagine? Because the one thing that Anthony Albanese does know, and this is where he overplayed his hand a bit in Australia, which was to constantly make Trump an issue as really the most dangerous president in the world, which is like the subtext of everything he said about Peter Dutton's association with Trump. So can you imagine how it would go down with the Labor Party faithful if there was a picture of him and Trump at the next... Like, that would actually lose him votes. So, you know, that one I think is said in jest, and I doubt that Donald Trump's going to hold him to it.
It's an interesting, you know, sort of background to it. It's very funny, I've got to say. The whole thing was quite compelling watching it yesterday, and a few highlights here and there, and Clennell was part of that. But when you talk about the substance, is like Australians support the alliance, they don't like Donald Trump. That's basically it, isn't it, in simple terms?
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is having Donald Trump come here would be a delicate moment for an Australian Prime Minister, different to meet him overseas. Can you imagine the protests in Australia if he did arrive? By the way, I see that they've stolen your play, which is they're offering him the President's Cup to come out for that event. You'd know, you're a golfer, I don't know when that happens, but that was something that you raised with Trump to get him to answer a question years ago, and caught his attention then.
Yes. We were together on that one in Japan for the G20 back in his first term. I want to ask you about something that's coming next week. This circus continues, and all the leaders will be back in the room next week. And in fact, you know, after the Prime Minister met with Trump at the White House, he could have one, maybe two more face-to-face encounters with him next week at ASEAN and at the APEC summit in Korea.
And interestingly, the delicacy of this dance between raindrops will be on show at the next meeting at ASEAN and the one after that at APEC. And so, because the Chinese will be there. So I think Li Keqiang is going to be there, the Premier, at ASEAN, and then Xi Jinping may well be at APEC. And so that's where the interesting politics for Australia is. It's trying to navigate our way between our major trading partner and our key ally as we've gotten ever closer to the United States. And do you think, there may not have been because it happens all the time, but that display in the South China Sea where China shoots flares in front of an Australia plane as the Prime Minister is meeting the President in the United States, do you think that sends a bit of a message?
Yeah, it sure did. It was quite a blunt one. Chris Uhlmann, thank you. As always, appreciate it. We'll talk to you